watched any of my videos, you've heard any of my other lives I've been on, and you've heard Cassie talk. I am very about the facts. I'm very non-biased. I'm giving out both sides of the scenario. I'm not telling you this is what happened. Again, I'm not completing an investigation, but I'm answering questions as people are throwing them. I'm giving you both sides of the coin here. And people have to realize that if a thorough investigation is done, by other experts. And, if people don't like my opinion when I'm done with it, they can have somebody else do the same thing and they come to the same idea. I mean, at the end of the day, people are going to believe me or they're not going to believe me. I can't change y'all's opinion. Y'all are going to believe what you want to believe, and that's it, you know. But I'm going to have faith in whatever my investigation determines, and whether or not you want to believe that's going to be up to you guys. And that's why I said that people are going to hate me one way or the other, but that's how any case is. There's going to be people that are going to believe one thing over the other, regardless of what the facts might say at the end of the day when those facts come out. You
Right.
know,
I think people hear your non-biased opinion and the things that you're saying, and I think they're so emotionally involved that they're thinking that that's your investigation of your assessment of what happened or your opinion of what truly happened when you're just explaining all scenarios.
correct. I'm giving you all scenarios. If somebody asks, when I do reconstruction, am I gonna do both? So we don't actually force the scenario.
Right.
We document the entire scene, and we put all the evidence that we compile. So that includes crime scene photographs whenever those are released, any photographs from the family, any information that we get, related to the death, the photographs, 3D photographs from the scene, everything that we obtain. We put all of that into models, and then we run models based off of that. We determine whether or not the trajectory matches up with an unaliving, does it match up with potential homicide. It's a very complex and time-consuming process where we don't force the scenario. We use the evidence that we collect with our investigation on the scene using the 3D lasers and the drones, as well as our death investigation. Combine that into the computer program, and then it kind of gives us animations. At that point, we can kind of run both animations, but we don't go in there with that into the computer program, and then it kind of gives us animations. At that point, we can kind of run both animations, but we don't go in there with the goal of forcing one animation or the other, because then we're getting into being biased towards one or the other. If
Right.
that
And I
makes
think a
sense.
lot of people in this want to come at this with the guilty until proven innocent. And that's just not the way that it works. And I think that that's irresponsible.
Yep.
Correct. And I'm very big proponent of due process and innocence until proven guilty,
Yep.
regardless of
Right.
what anybody believes about anybody else. And that's why I refuse to comment about anybody involved with this case, because
Yep.
Right.
again, as a private investigator, I pride myself on being non-biased.
Yep.
And again, this is not to sound cocky, this is not to sound narcissistic. I'm just telling you what my personal ethics are when it comes to investigations, and that is to be non-biased.
Right.
And that's
I
the
made
way
the
you
mis-
need to be. Yeah.
yeah, I made the mistake of getting into the mud when I first got involved with this. I quickly backed out of that. I maintained my ethics. I'm not going to get involved with any of that. My goal, my job is to be non-biased in this. Put block out everything else, all the extra outside noise. Only focus on whatever evidence I can get. When I say evidence, I'm talking about whatever the sheriff's office has from their investigation, because at the end of the day, that is the evidence. The evidence is what was on scene of the death investigation. Whatever the ME has, whatever the sheriff's office has, that is what I'm going to use for my investigation. I'm
Yep.
going to use my opinion, my expertise, my team's expertise to render our opinion, but it's going to be based on the evidence from the scene itself, not anything I found on social media.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because, a lot of us are going back to everything JP has done to Micah. And you can't go in there with that. You have to go with a clear head and do what you do.
So I
So,
think what we all got to kind of remember too, like let's say this does come back and it does come back that she unalived herself. I mean, all hope isn't lost, and it does come back that she unalived herself. I mean, all hope isn't lost.
No.
Like Eric said, maybe she did do it to expose something bigger.
Yep.
And then at that point in time, I think we need to work towards, he pushed
Justice
her
for
to do
Micah.
this. He pushed her to do this. Things like he did, the way he treated her pushed her to do this.
Yep.
I mean, there's still justice to be served, whether
Yes.
she did it or somebody else did it to her.
Exactly right.
Important thing is see a lot of justice, but also answers. Her family deserves answers of what truly happened.
Right.
I'm
I
not
think
going to
it's the
answer any
hard
questions as
answer.
to whether I think she did this to herself or not. Like I said before, and I think some of you guys have just joined. I have not completed my investigation. I have no opinion as to what I think happened yet. Anything that we've talked about has simply been just giving you scenarios based on social media and based on evidence that I reviewed. These are just scenarios. These are not any actual investigation facts because I have not released and I'm not going to release any of our investigative facts. I'm simply giving over scenarios based on things that I've worked in the past and questions that you guys are asking. I know somebody had asked, how can I be non biased if I'm talking about the case on social media? Again, I'm answering questions, based on my experience. I'm not giving out exact facts of the case, nor am I allowing your questions to influence my investigation. Therefore, it's a non biased discussion.
So can I, after you do your investigation, are you going to go into detail with us why you think it was the way it was when you're done? Like, explain. Are you going to explain? Are you going to explain the results to us? I guess I'm trying to say.
If the family allows me to, because at the end of the day, even though I've not been hired by the family, I've only asked for permission to work the investigation. I was given permission, at Mr. Francis. I'm still going to abide by, the I say attorney-client, sorry, the investigator-client privilege that we have here in Florida. There is a state law we have here in Florida that any investigative information cannot be released to the public. So I cannot give details of specific investigation unless my client allows me to. I'm still going to treat it as a client, even though I've not been hired, just because that's how we have to do it. If Mr. Francis says, "Yeah, you know what, it's fine, you can release whatever you want to," then I'll release it. But if he says no, then it's Francis says, "Yeah, you know what, it's fine, you can release whatever you want to," then I'll release it. But if he says no, then it's going to remain private. If he wants to release it, then that's up to them and the family. So, I mean, it sucks for those that love true crime stuff, but unfortunately, I'm not going to jeopardize my license or,
Right.
stuff like that. So that's why I enjoy answering questions and, educating, but, I can't, entertain you guys with specifics.
So
That's
I've
very.
seen a couple comments in the chat talking about the type of pew pew she used. Um, do you know, in your opinion, why, if she were to do this, if she were to be the person to do this, why would she have gone with a that kind of pew pew?
No, I have no idea. I mean, it was a good brand. I honestly, I don't know. I mean, I don't mean that as a joke, but
Right.
I mean, that's a question that nobody can really answer. And there's no such thing as a dumb question. So I don't take it as that. But again, I mean, it could have
And
been
I
on
can't find.
sale. It could have just been a really good price. There could have been a multitude of things. Maybe she had experience with that firearm in the past. Maybe she
Yeah.
shot it before.
Yeah.
You know,
Those might be things we'll never know.
Yeah, and I can't find the comment to actually read it to you, but that was pretty much what it was saying. Like, why get that specific one just to go do that? Is pretty much what it said, but I can't find it now.
someone asked why I offered my services. Um, so this is kind of, obviously. So for those that don't know me, again, uh, I have my own PI business, obviously. But a lot of what we do is offering services to those that normally would not be able to afford our services. That's always been my goal for the 11 or 13 years I've been in business. Um, in addition to that, I'm also one of the co-founders of a nonprofit that deals with investigating cold cases. So doing stuff for free, you know, and again, I'm a reserve firefighter. I mean, literally volunteering has always been something that I do. I just enjoy giving back to people. I mean, that's really all I do it for. I mean, I love being an really all I do it for. I mean, I love being an investigator. I love giving back to people. I love helping people. So that's why I kind of got involved in this case because I heard about it. People were tagging me in comments about it. Um, Because the other cases I've been involved in, and I just was like, you know what, this sounds interesting. I feel like there's something that could be, more here, and I just felt the calling to, reach out and try to help. So, and again, I'm going to answer this other question too. Nobody has been hired in this case. You know, nobody has been hired. I asked permission from the family, from Mr. Francis. He granted my permission to look into this case, operating with permission from the family, as is DB, who's the other investigator that's working this case with another creator. We both have permission. Nobody has been hired.
Somebody asked, how long will your investigation take? Like, how long does it normally take?
That depends. I mean, it's hard to say, and it's really going to depend on when we can get access to all the records. So it's going to depend on when we can get the rest of the public records. Because part of our investigation is going to require us to be able to get, autopsy photo. Well, sorry, I forgot this. There's no autopsy in this. I have so many death investigations.
Yes.
No autopsy photographs in this one, but crime scene photographs, the ME photographs, because they would have taken their own photographs on scene as well. Those are going to be important for our investigation.
And the
You know,
toxicology. Oh,
toxicology screening, all that kind of stuff. That's going to be very important. So until all the evidence is released and we can get our hands on it, it's going to be hard for us to complete the investigation. So it may take a little bit of time.
yeah.
Are you? Can I just ask this? Do you have to go back out to the scene in order to reenact this, or how does that work?
Yes,
Okay. Can I
yes,
just
because we had
let
to
you? Can I just
got to
let
set
you
up the
know?
lasers and
Can I just let you know? And I don't know if this would have anything to do with what you're doing, but Casey and I just found out that at that park there, you now have to fill out a form in order to do any kind of photography, videography,
How you doing, man?
drones, or any of that in the park from now on.
well, that's fine. That sounds
No,
like
no,
a
I just wanted to make you
no, no,
aware
no.
of
I was
that.
going to make
So,
no, no, not towards you. I was about to make a comment towards the state as that sounds like a great reason for me to litigate something because if that's a state park, I should have access to something because if that's a state park, I should have access to what's essentially a state park, right?
Yeah, I thought that was crazy when you guys said that earlier.
Mm-hmm.
That is insane.
That's crazy.
I'll just say that I didn't realize that this was, a restricted area. I thought it was a state park that taxpayer money went to pay for.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of all government. If anybody didn't notice the tone of my voice there.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, I don't think they can. Oh, yeah. You can't take pictures at a state park. That's, yeah.
I didn't
That's
mean. I did
unheard of.
not. I did not mean any disrespect to you for telling you that. I just wanted to let you know that
Oh no
this
no
is
no no
what
no!
came about. And
I didn't take it that way. As soon as you said it, my first thought went to the state pulling some shady shiznit,
Yep.
and I was just my first thought was the state was just being stupid. That was the inflection of my voice that you heard.
well, I will let you know this. So, last night, I don't know if that person's in this group tonight. He received a unknown number. He received a phone call from an unknown number, claiming that they were a detective, telling him that he better not go out there and videotape because it's against the law and he will be prosecuted.
Well, I would tell him to give me the statute in North Carolina that says, what crime that he's violated by going out there.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you say I'm going to be arrested doesn't mean you can actually arrest me.
Put it this way: the detective didn't even leave a name or a phone number for him to return a call. So
Yeah,
there you
that's
have it.
full of as they say in my favorite movie, Super Troopers, shenanigans.
Shenanigans.
Yeah. Say it one more goddamn time. Shenanigans?
Shenanigans. Oh, someone had a question. That was a good one. Hold on. How do the police work with private investigators? Do they appreciate the help or do they turn it away?
No, they hate us.
I was about to say, that's probably the answer.
Because most cops have an ego. Most detectives have an ego. So, they don't want their case, being solved by somebody outside. And that's why even with cold cases, it's such a hard time getting information or cooperation because the cops want to solve the cold case. But if they wanted to solve it, it wouldn't be sitting around for 48 years being unsolved, you know. And most of us PIs are former law enforcement. we've been around the block quite a bit of time. We have experience, but a lot of these newer cops don't see it that way. They just see it as a threat to their job.
Right.
So some
So,
cops, I have a relationship with some detectives, but others they don't. They could care less.
Do they normally make you wait until they're done with their investigation? Like, do you normally have to stay out of like a crime scene or whatever um, until they're done?
Well, I've never had a case where I was hired right when something actually happened. So,
Okay.
yeah. So usually, no, there's never that issue because we're not allowed access to a crime scene either. Everything was always after the fact. I mean,
Yeah.
a family's not going
Okay.
to hire us until they have doubts about something. So,
Gotcha.
um, yeah.
So if you okay, if after you do this investigation, let's say you find out it is I guess a homicide, right? She didn't do it.
Hmm.
Do you legally have to then let like the police know, or do you let the FBI know, or it doesn't matter because you're a private investigator that you're not
It doesn't.
legally obligated to tell them?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I have no legal obligation to do anything. I mean, the only legal obligation we have is obviously to whoever a client may be. And again, in this case, technically we don't have a client because we don't have a signed agreement with anybody. We just have verbal permission to look into a case. But out of respect for the family, it's going to go to the family. And if they want to go to law enforcement, they can. But they've got a lawyer, they've got an attorney. And so usually the best option is to have their counsel take care of it and do what they need to do with it because they're probably going to have more communication with law enforcement than we are, than we're going to have.
Someone said, who's usually responsible for like putting the charges on someone, the police or the DA? Can you elaborate on that?
I mean, the police are the ones that make an arrest based on what they believe to be a law, and it's the district attorney's office or state attorney's office that files the charges. So it's
So,
always police that initiate, and then a DA that files.
so in this case, with the FBI involved, if the FBI, would they press charges, or would the DA be the ones that press charges even still?
Well, it would always have to be the law enforcement agency to file charges. But remember, there's no there. People have to realize there's no federal law for homicide. Homicide is a state level offense. There's no federal law for homicide unless it's a race related homicide. And that's why, again, I said before in earlier lives, the FBI does not investigate deaths, especially local death investigations. And again, and I said this last night on a live, we have to keep in mind that currently the death investigation from the Robeson County perspective is a closed case. It's not an open investigation. The death investigation is closed. That has nothing to do with whether or not it can be reopened or not. But from the legal perspective, that case is closed because an ME has signed a death certificate. There is no active and open death investigation. Now, if the FBI is investigating something related to, and I mentioned this earlier, but for those that are new, if the FBI is investigating something related to the church, and Micah happened to be involved in that investigation, they're going to look into anything involving Micah. That includes her death. They're not going to be investigating her death, so to speak. They're going to be looking into it because it's associated with her, which is associated with an investigation that they might be looking into. But they would not file charges for homicide because there is no federal law against homicide except for in the case of like terrorism, um, uh, drug trafficking, um, kidnapping, things like that.
So there's a question in the chat. She says, how do you plan to get the records you need being law enforcement won't release due to FOIA exemptions?
Usually, it has to be through a release from the family, which because I have communication with the father, that shouldn't be an issue. If there is an exemption for which most states do have an exemption, especially for the ME's office, where the family can allow a third party to obtain photographs related to a death investigation. All
Hmm.
it would need would just be a notarized document from the family. Just be a notarized document from the family.
Okay, and I know you said usually you just use those kind of documents. Now, would you, I guess, still use like the pictures from the father as well, like of the bruising and stuff like that, to do your investigation? or
Correct. Any evidence anybody has of the actual scene itself, or and again, the body is part of the crime scene. The body is a piece of evidence in itself. That all goes into my investigation related to the death investigation. Somebody asked what I'm investigating. So we are looking into the death investigation itself and trying to recreate the final moments before what we call the fatal incident. So we're not looking into anything else related to this except for the scene, where she was found, and the events leading up to the fatal incident.
Someone asked, has the cause of death by a medical examiner ever been changed or reversed due to your investigations?
Typically, no, because again, most cases are exactly as the ME determines them. Most cases, and when we get hired usually for a second opinion, and I hate to say unfortunately, but most cases, the closure is usually confirming that the cause of death is exactly what was determined to be by the medical examiner. The manner of death was, exactly what was determined by the medical examiner. And this is commonplace even for my colleagues as well. Very rarely does a cause of death, manner of death get overturned. It just doesn't happen that often.
Right.
So did the FBI, even though there's no like federal homicide, like you said, even though it's cross state lines, don't the FBI get involved? Even not necessarily in this case, but even other cases, whenever there's a homicide that crosses state lines, don't the FBI get involved at some point?
Well, no, unless she was kidnapped and there was proof of the kidnapping, it would not be a federal investigation. And secondly, even if it was a kidnapping, it could still be a state level investigation for whatever state she was originally kidnapped from. Just because a cross state line does not make it a she was originally kidnapped from. Just because a cross state line does not make it a federal investigation.
Okay,
Again, the
thank you for
feds don't
clarifying.
feds don't get involved with things that don't bring them more taxpayer money. And what brings more
I've seen
taxpayer
that
money?
said a couple times, so
Yeah. What brings more taxpayer money? Well, a church that's committing fraud.
right.
That makes them look good. And I hate to say it that way, but I'm just being a realist.
I think this was all really good information.
Yeah.
Very much. I
So what
learned a
you
lot.
got now?
Yes, thank you, Eric.
Very interesting.
It clears up a lot of misinformation, and
Yes.
I think it opens people's eyes to just look at this from more of a non-biased, even though we want justice for Micah and we care for her and but we also want the truth,
Right.
More than anything, we want the truth.
Exactly. Somebody asked,
And
didn't the FBI get involved in Gabby Petito? Yes, but Gabby Petito was a missing person. FBI handles missing person cases, especially ones that have gone missing from another state into another state. And
I just
that was weird. My microphone. I just saw the notification. Yeah, they got involved in Gabby Petito because it was a missing person case. FBI frequently gets involved in high-profile missing person cases.
I just want to tell you thank you because I mean, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but you really opened my eyes to things to think about this in a whole different way. Um, I really like your approach of facts versus.
Opinion.
I mean, I liked that we did the theories, but I also think that it's more important that we do it factual, like Eric does it versus us with our theories, because we're obviously not getting anywhere because we don't have enough information to get anywhere. And I think maybe there's other ways to approach this to get justice for her versus we don't have enough information to get anywhere. And I think maybe there's other ways to approach this to get justice for her versus us sitting here theorizing all the time and it just what Eric had to say just really opened my eyes to thinking about this way different.
Yeah, and again, it's just all about, and that's part of investigating is looking at other scenarios. Doesn't mean that you have to believe the scenario. And again, your job as an investigator is to allow the evidence to shape your theory. You're not trying to force the theories to fit your evidence. And I think a lot of people forget that. You have to let the evidence shape your theories. And sometimes you may have multiple theories. And then as an investigator, your job is to investigate those theories and rule them out, like spaghetti. You keep cutting spaghetti until there's no spaghetti left.
Yeah.
To be honest
And
with you, I think I feel horrible for the family because all of us, not just one person, but all of us, have kind of put them through like, I don't want to say like false hope, but
that's what I said. Yeah, that's what I said yesterday on
we
Ethan's
keep
live. So
feeding them all these theories and stuff, and I think it might get their hopes up, and we all may have to come to the realization that she did this.
Right.
Yeah,
That is possible,
it
yeah.
is what it is, and I think I mean, and I'm not blaming any one person, but when you have people all the time, oh look what we found, oh my God, look at this, posting this stuff all over Facebook. This one, look at how guilty he is. He did this, he did that, he did this, he shouldn't have done that. It's giving people false hope.
Yeah. I think we just need to like focus on like spreading awareness and helping people and like with domestic violence and narcissistic people and like what it can make people like and just be supportive, you know.
Ad dunk for you too. What are you saying? Nope, not all of us. I'm sorry, but if you're in a live and you've been in a live where people have discussed theories and stuff, you're still a part of it no matter what. I'm sorry. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
earlier in the live, but I think people missed that. So again, I had mentioned that in suicides, it is entirely possible for somebody to continue traveling or continue walking post suicide. Not every shot is fatal to a head. I think people just falsely assume that just because you shot themselves in the head that it's going to be fatal. That is not the case. We've had many cases before, not only as a private investigator, but also in my career in EMS and even as a corrections officer, where people have committed suicide or tried to commit suicide and they're still walking and talking before they died. Not every situation is immediately fatal. So one of the theories that we will examine is whether or not the gunshot could have been non-fatal initially, but gravely injured her, and she could have staggered and fell, at a different location. And that has happened before. I also want to answer because I know somebody had commented earlier that they didn't give credence to my theories. That's fine, and I mentioned before, there's gonna be many of you that I'm not going to convince at all with any of my information, regardless of what background I can throw at you or what I've done or what I've seen, and that's perfectly okay.
Right.
Welcome to life, where everybody's going to have a differing opinion,
Yeah,
and every single case is going to be like this. I mean, you know, even as a juror, as a juror, you sit there and think about it. You get called a jury dude. You sit there, listening on a criminal case. You and the juror next to you are not going to have the same opinion about this case. You know, now the judge requires you to come up with the same verdict, but you don't necessarily have to agree with all the facts of the case. And the judge even tells you that you all don't have to agree with all the facts of the case, but you have to weigh the evidence at the end of the day. This is no different than that. And so, my job here is not to convince any of you as to what I think actually happened, because you know what? I can't convince those that believe something else happening. You know, I have not been able to confirm what I think happened yet because I've not completed the full investigation. Um, but when the full investigation is complete, and if those results are released, some of you may agree with it, others of you may not agree with it. Um, and I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise, because you are entitled to your opinion. You have your reasons for believing that, and it's not my duty and it's not my responsibility or my goal to change